Every retailer on Earth is fighting the same silent war, and it is a war over one line item, the cost of goods sold. A grocery chain hands back roughly 70 cents of every dollar just to keep the shelves full. A fashion brand pays a factory in Vietnam months before a single customer walks in, betting on a season it has not seen yet. That single number, inventory cost, is the reason retail margins are thin, and the reason so many chains quietly go bankrupt. Now picture a business with more than 3,200 locations across 2 countries pulling in close to $8 billion a year, and its cost of goods on the shelf is, functionally, zero. Nobody invoices this company. Nobody negotiates a wholesale rate with it. The stock shows up in a hatchback, dropped off by a stranger who says thank you on the way out the door for the privilege of giving something away. That is the entire supply chain of a thrift store, and once you actually sit with that fact, the whole business flips inside out. If the goods cost nothing, the business was never about selling clothes. It is about something else entirely, and the bag you dropped off last spring is exactly how you find out what that something else is. Before we go into the back room, one question. Next time you're at a thrift store, look at the price tag on a plain cotton t-shirt. If it's anywhere north of $6, you're not paying for the shirt. You're paying for everything I'm about to explain. Drop a comment with the strangest price tag you've ever seen on something that clearly cost nothing to acquire, and while you're there, the like button genuinely helps this video reach more people who have never thought about any of this. So if the input is free, where does the cost actually live? It lives in hands. Someone has to receive your bag, open it, decide item by item whether it's sellable, check the seams, price it, steam it, hang it, and put it on a sales floor that's often 10 times larger than a normal clothing shop because the inventory is one of everything rather than racks of the same size in 6 colors. Then, when it doesn't sell, someone has to take it back down again. That's the real cost structure of a thrift chain: free product, expensive labor, and commercial square footage. And because none of those costs move with the value of any single item, the entire business model quietly becomes about one thing only: moving volume. Not selling a good jacket for a good price, just moving weight through the building faster than it comes in. Keep that idea in your head because it explains literally everything that happens after your bag disappears through that back door. Here's the part almost nobody realizes about the biggest name in the space. Goodwill is not one company. It's a brand license shared by roughly 155 separate regional nonprofits, each with its own board, its own pricing, and its own executive pay scale. There's no head office setting the price of a pair of jeans in Ohio versus Oregon, which is exactly how you end up with wild variance in leadership compensation. Some regional CEOs earn comfortably into 6 figures, and a handful clear over $1 million in total annual compensation, all funded not by grants or major donors who might raise an eyebrow at a filing, but by the till, by people paying $2 for a sweater. A nonprofit whose revenue comes almost entirely from retail answers to almost nobody, because the shopper assumes they're getting a bargain and the donor assumes they're helping someone, and neither one thinks to check the 990. Now follow your actual bag. It lands in a sorting bin and gets triaged within minutes, because every hour it sits unsorted is a cost with no offsetting revenue. Anything torn, stained, or musty is pulled immediately. Anything that looks genuinely valuable, a vintage band tee, a designer handbag, a rare vinyl record, gets separated entirely and never touches the local sales floor at all. It goes into an online channel instead, listed on the organization's own auction site or on eBay, sold to a national audience of collectors who will pay real money for it. This single channel, invisible to the person browsing in store, is often the most profitable slice of the entire operation, because it takes items with actual retail value and prices them at their actual retail value instead of a flat $5. Everything else, the plain, the ordinary, the fine but unremarkable, gets tagged and hits the racks. And this is where the ladder starts. Most stores rotate a colored tag system weekly, so an item that doesn't sell gets progressively marked down, week after week, color after color, until it's effectively free within the store itself. After roughly a month of failing to sell at every price point down to almost nothing, it's pulled from the floor entirely, because the shelf space it occupies is worth more empty than full. From there, it drops one full level into the outlet. If you've never been inside an outlet store, it doesn't resemble retail at all. It's a warehouse with rows of enormous bins, unsorted, unpriced, unfolded, and you buy by the pound, typically somewhere between $1 and $2 per pound depending on the region. There are people who show up at opening time with gloves on, elbow to elbow at the bins the moment fresh stock is wheeled out, because staff rotate entire bins every 15 to 30 minutes. An individual garment might sit in that bin for under 2 hours before it's swept out to make room for the next load. Something a garment worker in Bangladesh spent 20 minutes stitching together, that hung in someone's closet for 3 years, gets a 2-hour audition inside a plastic bin, and then it's gone. Gone doesn't mean thrown away, though. It means compressed into a bale, weighed, and sold wholesale by the ton to textile brokers. This is the layer almost nobody who donates ever sees, and it's also the layer that guarantees the business a floor under its losses, because a broker will always pay something for weight, whether or not a human ever wanted to wear it. From there, entire container ships of these bales head overseas, to markets across West Africa, Eastern Europe, and increasingly to Chile, where the port city of Iquique has become a global receiving point for used clothing headed into South America. Around 60,000 tons of second-hand clothing arrives there every single year, and a staggering share of it, tens of thousands of tons, never gets resold at all. It's dumped illegally in the Atacama Desert, one of the driest places on the planet, where synthetic fibers simply do not decompose. Satellite images now show mountains of discarded clothing visible from space, sitting in a landscape too arid to break them down naturally. That shirt someone donated with good intentions in Ohio may end up as a permanent geological feature in a desert 8,000 kilometers away. This is also where the for-profit version of this industry gets interesting, because it strips away all the charitable framing and shows you the raw economics underneath. Savers, also operating as Value Village, is the largest for-profit thrift chain in North America, backed by the private equity firm Ares Management, and it posted net sales north of $1.6 billion in its most recent fiscal year. It doesn't collect donations directly. It pays charity partners a flat rate per pound or per bin for the right to sort and sell their donations, a rate that stays fixed whether the item sells for $2 or $20. The gap between what it pays by weight and what it charges on a hanger is the entire company, and it works precisely because it borrowed the emotional atmosphere of charity without carrying charity's obligations. So where does the money actually sit? Not in the shirt on the rack, not really. It sits in a 4-layer stack built entirely on top of a free input, a thin, high-margin online layer for the genuinely valuable pieces, a broad retail layer that mostly exists to filter and sort, a per-pound outlet layer that clears whatever retail rejected, and underneath all of it, a wholesale export layer that guarantees someone somewhere pays something for the weight no matter what. A normal retailer that misjudges demand eats the loss outright. A thrift chain that misjudges demand simply sells the mistake by the pound to the next buyer down the chain, all the way to a desert in Chile if it has to. Which means the person browsing the racks on a Saturday afternoon was never really the center of this business. You, standing in the parking lot with 4 bags, thanking the volunteer for taking them, quietly declining a receipt you'll never use, you were never the customer. You were the supply chain, and it never once had to pay you a cent. If this changed how you look at your next donation, a like and a subscribe genuinely helps this channel keep making videos that dig into the hidden economics behind everyday businesses. And if you want to see how another everyday chain quietly turns pennies into billions, the Money and Business playlist is right there. The Dollar Store Breakdown is a solid next stop. See you in the next one.